You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the November 6, 2024 meeting of the Long Beach Budget and Finance Committee. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
This is the Budget and Finance meeting, November 6th, 1 p.m. And we have our board present minus JD Haley. And our first item on the agenda, monthly financial statements. So yesterday I had emailed out the revenues and expenses and the cash allocation report. Trista and I are going to update the projections. We ran out of time, but started the capital plan, just adding a couple more expenses. Although I think we have a good understanding heading into year end and then again, heading into next year on the capital plan. One item that had come up was, which will be discussed at the council meeting, is the capital for the bathroom at the community center, an ADA bathroom. I think the original number I had heard was 30,000. I believe the request is for 25,000. That is in the capital plan and can be spent this year. The other item, what was the other capital one? Oh, CCMG. So Mark is going to present to council at the meeting the request for spending, I don't know if you give me, up to 30,000 for Lakeshore Drive prelim engineering to get an idea of options, and we've got to start doing that so that we can make plans and figure out the timeline and how the road's going to end up being. And then Mark had even mentioned a meeting for residents input, but to get the ball rolling with Haas, and that 30,000 is within about $2,000 within the capital plan and available to start spending in December and into January. We have another.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Can I ask you a quick question about that project?
Sure.
Maybe Mark or somebody. What do we have for a number, Mark, for how wide we hope to get for Lakeshore Drive?
That's, Joe, too, if you can switch mics, that one with the tape on it has an issue, yeah, maybe switch over to the other one. So Haas Engineering will determine if we will have each roadway either 11 feet or 12 feet wide. Those are discussions I'll have to occur once they identify the right of way and looking at if we're going to be reclaiming part of that right of way for roadway pavement. So that's part of the reason for the proposal is we don't have the answer to that question yet, but we'll know more once they start the engineering.
Am I right? I just wanted just so I have, because that is actually planted 50 feet wide. Am I correct? Lakeshore Drive has been planted 50 feet wide.
I'm not aware of that. You could be correct, but I've never been told that.
Because I've always felt that the Lakeshore Drive is 50 feet wide and the roads by our houses are 40 feet wide. And anyway, okay, I was just curious because there's some places that are right in the right way. I mean, there's just, I was just curious how easy or hard it's gonna be.
Yeah, we'll know more once they get this preliminary engineering started and then provide us feedback each month as they move forward.
Okay,
Thank you.
So yes, those were the two capital items I could think of that are actually on the agenda for November. And again, probably this week, well, we will, hopefully tomorrow, be sending out the projections and the capital plan. Again, that have not changed immensely from August when you saw them, but just with a handful of expenses that we need to capture that were done in September and October. Any questions? That's capital plan update. The capital, I'm gonna backtrack, capital assets, inventory and reporting. Mark is doing a great job. He had met with Kayla, who replaced Renee, and is going to meet with Tom Dolph some more to go over all of the physical assets, as in electronics and equipment. Doing a great job figuring that out for us. Tristan, I talked briefly, and with Mark's tip, that I need to go to our insurance plan and try to assess some of our building values. Tristan, Carl can help us with some depreciation. I responded back to the state with Tristan's help on a lot of documents related to a looming audit of 2020 to 23. And part of what we're supposed to be having on file is this capital asset inventory. So I don't think the town has really had that in the past. So we just would like to let the state know we're working towards that and getting accurate with it. And it's an effort of department heads and Mark and, you know, various individuals. So I think Trista, Mark, and I will meet coming up, unless you want to touch on anything else today about it, Mark.
Trista has the draft copy of what we've been working on for the last several months. So all the vehicles, the trailers, anything that's literally got tires on it or a mower, those are all in the spreadsheet that she has there. We also have a running inventory of equipment by department. Asset tags have been applied to a lot of those items. We had a few that we have to finish up, but we've also taken the time to work on that, conducting the inventory. So I think we're in pretty good shape when compared to the past, and we'll have that, you know, kind of tidied up here in the next couple of weeks, ready to go for you. One of my big questions, the document that I gave to Trista, is do we have to assess or assign a value to some of those items? Because some of those items, for instance, a 2003 leaf vac machine, I don't know what we paid in 2003. I could probably put a replacement cost on it if we had to replace it today. But is that needed? And if so, I can sit down with the department heads and I can come up with either a replacement cost or an estimated cost at the time when we purchased it. I just need to know from you what the state's requiring from us as to a monetary amount.
Right, so the state will look first at our ordinance to see what we've set the threshold at. What we have to include on our capital asset report then each year is any item that is at that value or higher. I was just looking through my files here to see, because I'm quite sure that we had passed an ordinance setting that threshold last year, trying to get all of this rolling, and I need to.
I think we
find it.
discussed it. I don't know.
Last year, though, 93.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I can.
So if we have not had council review an ordinance for that yet and get that established, that will be part of getting this project wrapped up. So let's just say that it's at 5,000 for most rolling stock and equipment type items. It is a good idea for you as a town to keep an inventory of items below that value, but the only items that will be reporting to the state board are items above that value. As well then as to annual depreciation and older items that you already possess that have probably by now depreciated fully. We have some different standards that we can use and help get those values attached. So for right now, what we've got here on the list is a great start. And we'll just be able to plug that into a format that we have. And then work on the depreciation part from there. And then each year moving forward, there's a standard depreciation value that is attached to the particular type of item. Obviously, a vehicle is different than a building. You know, land itself does not depreciate, but part of the ordinance which is the policy for your capital asset threshold, also typically would dictate what happens, with computer equipment, for example. Especially as people are moving more to laptops, which are a movable item, we wanna make sure that we keep track of that, and so a separate inventory listing is usually done for your own, purposes to keep track, but that would not be an item that would be reported through the state board's site.
We have that completed also for all desktops and laptops.
Yep. So if you wouldn't mind, could we check a date on the calendar right now for the three of us to meet for next week? You're closed Monday, right, for Veterans Day?
Yes, the council meeting.
Unless we just met for maybe an hour before the council meeting.
If we could. Let's see. You wanna do like 6 o'clock?
That'd be great if that works for the two of you.
Yeah,
Okay.
works for me. Great. And then Trista had mentioned to me about the putting a value on the new public safety building, that with some of the paperwork we have, that we could work on that as well as part of that project.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right, our next item,
Can I,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was just wondering, is there, just because I'd like to see a little bit with the budgets, you guys have progressed. Is there any, copy of anything that we could just look at, and we wanted to take a look at what we're doing so far with the budget?
It's actually gonna be, or it was final approval, yeah, so it's already finished, but you should be on an email, but I'll get it to you.
Okay.
If you have a copy, yes, yeah, so, but that is our next item, is a little update, which, Trista has explained to me at least 2 times, if not more, but, so we had a timeline to submit our approved budget back to the GLGF, so they're reviewing it. When the review is completed, we will receive a preliminary notice. We then have 10 days to reply and make sure there's no errors. And then the final approval order will be sent sometime in December, and we don't anticipate any problems. We anticipate the budget being passed. It was funded, and we expect the DLGF to pass it. So that's our budget update. We will sort of talk about budget when we get into the garbage rate discussion. Something Laura and I will bring up with Trista. Any other questions on the budget? Okay. Rainy day transfer, I think, will just be part of our, so this is not on the agenda, but along with the garbage rate ordinance, we are doing an additional appropriation at the November council meeting that was noticed to the paper. It's includes additionals in 5 funds, mostly related to capital. One example, we are putting the garbage fund, 150 for the F-550 truck that has been ordered, but we were told is now not going to be completed until 2025. So that's when we would start paying for it. But we're going to put that capital in there just in case they came back to say it was ready. The other accounts are general, again, like the community center bathroom there's some money left in community center, but any of the difference we've planned for in other places. Do we want to go through the actual additional? I know it was emailed out to council, Mark's seen it. We've got some in lit public safety, CCD, again, it's mostly capital, stormwater. Any questions on that? No. Okay, good. So anyways, the that's going to hopefully appropriate any funds we need to finish out the year with the intention of doing a transfer resolution in December to kind of clean up some of our expense lines related to budget and where we've placed things. You know, it's a big year of some of these bigger projects. We're still waiting for Woodruff's to give us bigger bills on the water project, for example. And that's, so in probably starting this month and into December, we would look to see if council wants to move, you know, 20 or 50 into the rainy day fund. Lakeshore Drive sewer project, possible engineering fee. I don't believe we have any update from Chris Willoughby on that. So I'm just gonna keep it on here. Mhm.
I took the liberty of calling or text him earlier today. He talked to me. He said there really hasn't been any significant movement. They're playing a little bit of tay-to-tay. So the new attorney is a guy named Hawkins out of Gary for the sanitary board, but they're still talking to the old guy that was the sanitary attorney. So there's just a little bit of legal maneuvering going on, but I think it's fair to say that we're not going to have to deal with any outlays for the foreseeable future, at least certainly not in the first half of the year at all. And then depending on whatever happens, I think the door is still potentially open for a settlement. So I don't think you can really look at any kind of an allocation for the coming year. Really, I think it'd be fair to say.
Okay, and I think we'll just keep it, we've discussed it plenty of times on whether we want to put a line item into the capital plan. When is the right time to do that? I don't think anyone will forget about this, so with the new council coming in January, we can bring any new members up to speed and continue discussions on the right time to add anything for that. Okay, on to new business. The fire truck purchase update. So if everyone recalls, on the capital plan, the first truck was ordered and the delivery has pushed back a bit. So per the fire department, Kurt Ernst, the delivery is now mid-25, possibly third quarter. So Trista had spoke with Carl the end of last week about the financing for that. If delivery was in March or April, we would work on financing in January or February. So per Carl's information, the fact that it's mid next year, we would just hope the fire department can keep us abreast of any change in delivery, if it's gonna be sooner, or if they get a more concrete date, then we would work on the financing. I believe the second truck, and I have the cost of that first truck, which was also good news. I believe we had $1 million in the capital plan. Can you confirm that, Trista, if you're available? I don't know if we adjusted that yet. The actual cost is a little over 818,000. And that's gonna help if we didn't update that yet.
So, remember for the fire truck, we've included in the capital plan, the per year expense.
Okay,
The first payment planned, the first annual total plan for 2025 is 150, because there might be a little bit more interest due on the first payment. And then we're planning for 130 each year thereafter, until it's paid off. So we don't, the way that, because we're not paying for it in one lump sum cash of 800,000, we've got to divide it out over the number of years that we think that the financing would be.
Okay. So unless we had that original cost, maybe, so that's a moot point. It may save us in the last year then, if we had thought it was $1 million, now it's 818. So second truck, again, per Kurt, delivery would most likely be in mid-2029. If they order it in 26.
Just 3 years. We're saying 3 years.
Okay, so you guys would for sure try to order it still.
We'd like to encourage council to order it in
Or-
6. We originally thought we would 27, but I think we ought to think about 26. Because I don't see that getting better. It's possible it would, but if we wait until 27, we're gonna push it beyond 29 for delivery, which we'd be in violation of the air regulations.
I believe we have that in the capital plan as beginning to pay for it in 28.
That's right,
That
so
we can push it a year back, so
we can move it.
ordering it in 26 is no problem. And the question would be, you could keep our capital plan and order it in 25, but if that's, that'd be your assessment. Okay? So that update will also be given to council at the meeting on Monday. On to the garbage rate.
And because of the large CCMG projects plan, if the fire truck can wait till 29 for payment purposes, that would be fantastic. To be able to push that 130 or that 150 off, one more year to 29 instead of in 28
Okay.
would help tremendously.
Okay. So that's the deadline or the time frame that I was given from the fire department, so unless I'm told otherwise, that's what we'll go with for now. Okay, the garbage rates ordinance was, a copy was given to all of you. And so we started assessing this. Council approved staying with Republic Services. And Chris Willoughby is working on a new ordinance that covers the next 3 years. And the assessment we've done in front of you is to look at what we could predict our overhead to be within than what we charge to residents above what we have to pay Republic for our monthly pickup rates. So actually,
Sure.
What we intend is that the first page of your 2-page item, your packet here is kind of the public summary and review. Meg went ahead and attached the second page so you can see some of the breakdown of math that she and I were working through for purposes of today. And then, for council's information.
so we'll start with the easy one, the leaf rate that we charge of $10. On that front page, you can see what our costs are. That is even including, my office's time with doing the bills, the financials, the yearly upkeep of that and managing it. And then the total cost when we take it monthly brings us below $10, which is what is currently on residents' bills. So we are not planning right now to increase the leaf rate to residents at all. Then when you head on to trash, that first column, Republic cost, is what our new rates are to Republic. The top little section is what our current rate is. So again, when you head right from where it says garbage, you see the Republic cost. We've added some capital cost for future capital. We would be paying for this F-550 truck out of the garbage leaf fund. We would be putting an additional portion of another truck that's in the capital plan in about maybe 2 more years. We have a leaf truck estimated to be between 50 and 70,000 that we have the funds right now for, that we would purchase, with another one to follow in a year mark, or in 2 years, in 26. So those are in any unforeseen capital that would come up. The next column is the street department, some of the salary and benefits for our 2 employees that currently flow into the leaf garbage fund. So we would look to cover those expenses with our rate increase. Next is the clerk's office. And this would be portions of my salary for oversight, Diane's salary for preparing the bills, even a portion of Deanna's. She talks to the driver each week and funnels any phone calls. She reaches out to Republic to get new cans when they need to be replaced. A lot of questions, especially in the summer, with, I have a couch, what do I do with it? So she schedules, extra pickups, things like that. A lot of people have that misconception that there's large item pickup anymore, which there is not. So when you take those items, you get a total cost, you can see the increases from the prior year. So this is more than what I had originally thought it would be. But again, there's an ordinance from 2005 that was put into place in 2006 with the unit charge cap that came out to $16.25. In the last 20 years since that came out, we have never gone above that unit charge. So I think it's important just to relay to residents as we roll out whatever final rate we land on, that, number one, Republic agreed a couple of years to not increase our rates. Even from 23 to 24, they were supposed to increase, and Republic kept them at the $15 and something cents that it was. I think $15.59 maybe, $15.95, yeah. So currently, if you look at what our rates were this year, for example, we're probably losing a little money. So as high as this might seem, and ultimately it will be council's decision on if they agree with putting, for example, more of this salary into this fund, which kind of eases up on our general fund a bit. And it's one bill that goes out every month, but it covers all three items of water, leaf, and garbage. So, you know, if we were to send 3 separate bills, for example, each fund, water's probably the bigger one, but each fund still requires our attention on a monthly basis. So you can then see that annual increase. And then Trista, which is, I joke, what we pay her the big bucks for, helped me analyze the revenue side of it, which I hadn't really been thinking about. So, you know, if it was council's opinion that they wanted, so these rates that are in this spreadsheet are what was noticed to the paper. So we cannot at this point charge higher than that,
Advertised rate,
the advertised rate, which is in that total cost column.
right below in the middle of the page, right below the second long black line is the advertised rate column.
Right. So we can land anywhere above the Republic cost and in between that advertised rate. And the way that Chris Willoughby is going to, which he should be getting to us probably this week, well, for sure, because the council meeting's Monday, but an ordinance that states this higher rate that we have presented. And that would be the first reading of the ordinance in November, with the second reading in December, and then the rates would go into effect in January. So,
I would I'd just add a couple of things to it, that my thoughts are that we were pretty conservative as far as the time that our street department employees spend working on like the leaf machines, and some of the garbage related things and that. So I can just tell you, I know the amount of time that, you know, Tom and his staff spend is probably more than what we're actually adding to this. So I think the advertised rate is very, you know, conservative. And my recommendation to the council would be that we go with the advertised rate, moving forward. So,
and again, I think we just have to make them aware it is the biggest jump this year, but again, we have barely been raised in 20 years. So, yeah, any additional or any questions, anybody? I know this was sent out a couple of days ago.
Can I ask a question? I was just curious. I know what happened, you know, with Tom's assistant got arrested, so, and we're looking for somebody. Are we concerned that maybe we won't be able to get somebody for the same rate, Mark? And we're gonna have to use that increased salary towards the budget.
No, we'll be, the budget's set within the salary range. We interviewed a young man today that has some potential, and we have some other candidates are on the short list. So we're fine with the budget, with the salary range that we have set. So, and we won't have to ask for any increases or that. So,
Thank you.
And then internally, what I had mentioned earlier, which Laurel and I were looking at, with adding some salary and or benefits to the leaf garbage, we would just, that's not been budgeted for 25. But we can, that's an easy fix.
Right, yeah, just an additional appropriation in January.
Mhm. Right, and again, those expenses would be covered. You can see the total cost on the far right, and then right below the total revenue, if we decided to go with that advertised rate. Okay,
Yeah, only thing I would, go ahead, Jen. The only thing I would add to what Meg has explained is that it's really important for you as a town to be able to take benefit of the diverse revenue stream that you have with these, what I'm going to call a utility, because you're charging for the service that the town provides to the residents. So just like water, or just like some Michigan City, does their sanitary district, garbage and leaf is also part with your water of the quote unquote utility that you provide to the residents. And so to be able to use that additional revenue above your property taxes in this kind of fashion to pay just a small portion of some of the salary of the people that do work in this area is important, because it then frees up money in your general fund or in your MVH fund. As Mark mentioned, the street department salary that's attributed to garbage is only 10% of their entire salary. And then for the clerk's office, it's only 5% for Meg and Deanna, and then 10% for Diane. So we look to have some kind of reasonable relation to their overall job and work, and attribute a portion of that that's comparable to the work that they do in the particular fund. I'm quite sure that the state board would have no problem with these percentages that were chosen. They probably could even be a little bit higher, but yet Meg was also cognizant of wanting to keep a low increase in the rate as well, to be conservative about that. So settling at under $34 increase for the entire year, especially comparing to surrounding communities, is good. And especially considering the fact that you have not had a raise of these rates in a very long time.
did you have anything?
Well, I was just, the list of the comments I had in the garbage.
Do we have to get you come up to the mic, Jen?
Sorry.
It's,
Just trying to understand the rest of your spreadsheet here. I follow you all the way through the columns with Republic cost, capital plan, street, clerk, total cost. And then your increase year over year is essentially over the top number, right? The 1606. And then what are you doing with the 3189? I'm a little confused with what you're doing there.
The 3189 is the annual increase of the proposed, of the cost in 25 compared to the rate of this year, the 1606.
So this
But-
is annually $31.89 more.
No, the advertised rate annual, the 3372, is the actual rate being proposed. $33.72 higher than this year's 1606.
That's for the year.
So the annual
Time out
increase,
now.
the annual increase
Is that a-
covers the cost.
Okay, your annual increase column, that 3372 that you just mentioned that. How does that relate to what you're proposing as your rate, which I thought was 1887? I'm confused.
Right.
Well,
So the 33,
so what we paid in the past year is gonna cost us $33.72 more going forward.
over the span of a year. So if you divide that by 12.
Next year with all these services, it's gonna cost you 33.72.
Okay, this is confusing the way you've got this. I don't know how you present this and who you present it to, but to show that 33.72 is an annual increase in the same block of information that shows your 1887 is a little confusing.
So the 1887 is the new advertised rate for 2025,
I'm with you there.
which is $2.81 higher than the
Right.
current 1606.
Right, but that 33.72, I don't think should be in this. It's
So that-
confusing to show that as in the same block of information, you're telling people you're going up to 1887.
Right,
But then you're showing this annual increase of 33.72, which really has no bearing on what you're doing with the.
yes, $2.81 times 12 is 33.72.
Okay,
So a monthly
but
increase,
these are rates, right? And now you're talking about total cost increase over the year. That doesn't, it's confusing, is what I'm trying to get in your head. I think if you want to show what it's costing somebody for the year, it shouldn't be in the same place as all these other unit price sorts of things, because it's confusing.
I'll add a heading on
If
that.
you're following, I'm just telling you as a layperson, looking at this information, I follow you all the way through it, but then in the same column that you're talking about unit prices to show a cumulative total in it is confusing.
I see what you're saying.
I would take that and just put it in a different little block, that's all, just move it, because you're talking about rates and annual increase in the rate, and now all of a sudden, where the hell is 33.70? It's just difficult to understand.
Noted. All right, so, I think what will be given to council is the summary. We'll work on that little spot. This working page, they received electronically, so, you know, hopefully any council members would come back to us prior to Monday with any questions. Anita, based on this, do you have any comments or questions to help us anticipate?
I think you've done
Okay.
a good job.
I think just the next step is, first reading on Monday, approved in December, new rates in January. Just again, Mark and I discussed an email blast, something on the website. You know, when the water bill increased a couple years ago, a whole letter was, actually, I think it was the stormwater. A letter was mailed with the reasonings and,
Right. But that's,
I think this is a little more, it's a little simpler,
right.
and straightforward. I think we will get residents that, you know, I wasn't told or et cetera, and we're gonna just do our best to get the information out, make it available. I think we could even put this summary on the website. If anyone has any better ideas or suggestions, I would love to hear them.
December, I think in December, we're gonna send out a winter newsletter. We can put it in the newsletter as well as the website. So there's at least a half a dozen locations that will have this listed, so there should be no reason for somebody to say they didn't see it. So if we get the information to Kayla, Kayla will build it into the next newsletter.
Perfect.
So,
That would, yeah, I think people are really liking those and reading them, which is always good.
we'll put a nice Republic toter in there so they'll catch their eye.
I think people will, you know, there'll still be people that say they didn't know and how did you come to this, but it's clearly very straightforward and.
Yeah, our office may get some calls.
Most of them, the water bill too.
You're right. I mean, if I got an increase, it wouldn't be a big deal to me. I don't know that I look at mine every
Or
month.
compare once.
Correct.
Well, and I just think our reasonings are pretty solid, you know,
Yes.
council making that decision to keep Republic Services. And I don't really see how residents can argue with that, with the service we receive.
17%, because they're not gonna understand why it's so big.
Right.
And you explain it with, your detail in this group is very easy to understand, and I compliment you on what you've done here. But when you get somebody in the labor person who sees a 17.5% increase, there will be people that are gonna be concerned. So
Right,
I don't know if you need to give Republic all of this, but I think you better have a narrative that says, this is why it's 17.5%. It's not that the Republic went up 17%. It's not that the town's cost went up 17%. You're not reallocating overhead, which is a reasonable thing to do, I think.
And also that it hasn't gone up, to your point, it hasn't gone up since the 2005, 2006 ordinance, so there hasn't been.
Right, I didn't get mired down in all those details. but-
No, I agree, you don't, right?
Yes.
okay.
Yeah,
I didn't get mentioned 17.5%, because that sounds like a lot of money.
it does.
Even though it's on a small amount, so I wouldn't even say that. Yeah, the dollar figure, but,
Anybody paying attention is gonna ask. It
And
may not be anybody paying attention, but somebody's gonna put that man together and say, what?
I would anticipate some phone calls
And
that I'm gonna have.
we
to-
can, you haven't posted this to the website yet, right?
No.
Part of the point of bringing this particular piece of paper to the meeting today was to give the Budget Finance Committee an opportunity, if there's anything about the page that you'd like to amend, we can. I'm perfectly fine taking those percentages off.
Mhm.
And I think that it's a good idea to do so because that 17.5, again, it seems like a big number. When we're talking about $16, it's not a big number, but yes, people do get distracted by the percentage.
I would agree.
Um,
I would agree. Well,
Yeah,
the-
we can just make another tab and hide some of this and,
yeah,
you know,
the other important part was just to show that, after this first year, that the increase is just right in line with the 4% increase from Republic, as well as, the annual cost of living raise type thing. But I can just as easily, and I've added a few column headings to respond to John's comments, that I think will be helpful. And, I'll send Meg an updated copy here in just a moment.
thank you. All right, well, thanks for going over that.
I just have a comment that,
One quick, last quick, if you take your new revelation that you're doing with your capital industry department clerk's office in your costs, that's 13 and change percent of that 17%. Just, you know, so your new accounting method is accounting for most of that increase. If anybody asks, which they may have.
And it was never, the street department has been in the garbage fund, prior to this upcoming year. The clerk's office was not specifically listed. But nonetheless.
I have a question. We're basing this on a 3-year based on Republic's. However, Healy's has not increased their prices to us over the years too. That, may come to pass, within the next couple of years. So,
And-
going out and spelling out what we're gonna do over the next 3 years may not be.
Well, and according to our ordinance, with that unit charge cap, this was supposed to be assessed on a yearly basis. We are going to not use that unit cap. We're just gonna spell out a 3-year ordinance that would then be either extended or amended on year 4, hoping that Republic would give us an extension, or if at that time council wants to put it out to bid, for example. And again, that's what we already discussed this year, those options of our level of service and what we pay, so.
I just want to make sure, and this might be really stupid, but I'm looking at the 281. And that $2.81, that's what I'm gonna see every month increase on the bill.
Correct. For this year.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm wrong, but it's not a very big increase. I mean, 17.5%, okay, percents are fine, but you're asking me to pay $2.81 a month.
That's what we like to hear, Joe.
Okay, I mean, I'll pay it.
All right.
Nobody's gonna buy it, so you see which one's it.
Yeah, I do think our justification is all warranted, so. And really, there's no one person to point the finger at. It's you know, council's assessed it the last couple of weeks. And, yeah.
That'd work.
Okay, that concludes our agenda. Any questions, anything to add? Anything we want to plan to look at next month?
Just real quick on the capital plan, I just want to add, the salt barn was taken off the council's agenda. We've been working with 3 commercial contractors, very professional builders that build, you know, those types of structures and metal buildings and that. We've got a variety of cost estimates. We've got some consideration we need to give as to what we want in the facility. Because some of the cost estimates came back as high as $300,000, which is way outside of the initial budget that we had set aside for this project. There are at least 2 vendors that are probably going to be reasonably priced that will be either near or slightly higher than our anticipated budget for this project. So I just want to update everybody to let you know that we haven't forgotten about that project. We are working on it. However, we are slowly working on it to make sure that we are wisely assessing what is needed and then putting the appropriate cost to it. So hope to have something to the budget finance in probably January, February, probably more like February.
Our prior number was educated based on some other quotes you had, right? So
It was, except for the confidence in that contractor as to what our needs were, I didn't feel comfortable with. So, yeah, so we're having it competitively looked at by some other builders. The one contractor that originally had priced it they've only been in business for 2 years. Not to say they can't do it, but I just want to make sure that what we build there, we aren't having issues with 3 to 5 years down the road, so.
Was it 90,000 or 100?
I had 100.
Mark, when do we, remind me, when will we start seeing the bills for the storage?
You should see one here very
Yeah.
shortly. Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
but we're gonna take delivery of some salt here in late November, December, so that'll impact that slightly, bringing that down. And then, obviously depending on the weather, the snow starts flying here in the next few weeks, we'll start using salt, and then we'll have more room to take on salt, so. But yeah, once I get a better idea, I can email everybody.
So Mark, just a quick question. So we're saying somebody came out with 300 and you were going based on a 100, is that pretty much?
That was our budget, was 100, yes, and then, we had one contractor come in as high as $300,000, so.
There's lots of ways to skin a cat with those things. They can be,
Yeah.
you know, a flexible fabric thing, they can be a metal building, they can be, if you look at what the state does, they have those big geodesic domes. I mean, there's a million ways to skin that cat, so.
A lot of it is we want to educate ourselves a little bit more about these buildings before we make the final decision for the town. Because this is new to us, so we're leaning on other communities and vendors out there. So I just need the time to research it, look at it, run it by, some experts in the field, and then bring it back to the town when we're ready. So I figured Trista would be happy we weren't in a hurry to spend $100,000.
Yeah, it's just disappointing to know that the first plan really isn't gonna work out quite so well because we would have saved all the storage fees.
Yeah.
The whole point of building the building was
Yeah.
to be more efficient with our overall resources. There's nothing you can do about it. So, I mean,
We're looking at an alternative site at our location, and we may be able to take on some of this salt and then tarp it for the year as well. So we've been doing some clearing. We just brought a dumpster in last week. We've been doing a lot of site cleaning at the facility as well. So yeah, we'll see what we can do about taking on some of the salt to save on the storage as well.
It's kind of like measure twice and cut once, right? I mean, yeah, we'd rather that you did have the salt barn, but again, to take a step back and be cautious about someone who's been in business.
It's very costly, it's very costly products.
Right.
It's here for materials and forever. If you put something up and
Yeah.
it needs up, you can build another one 5 years later. So there's a lot of.
So Trista would just ask you to stick around that $100,000 mark.
with the new final number.
well, I forgot on the capital plan that we're saving money on septic, so.
That,
Oh, that's right.
that was the question, Mark, I was gonna ask you is, Are we, what's our timetable on the septic? I'll just make it. easy.
2 to 3 weeks he'll be starting. He's about a week behind now because of all the heavy rain we've had in recent days. So he's finishing up a project. He's got a lot of the materials on order. We made the initial payment, which was $35,000 roughly. Meg sent off the first check to them. And then he's waiting on the timeline from the boring contractor that will bore under Oriole Trail. Once he has his schedule locked in, then construction will commence. So the goal is to have it done by end of December. So
That's super. Thank you.
Okay, I think that concludes our meeting at 1:51.